You don't bring people halfway around the world to visit a zoo. You bring the zoo to them. Mr. Hammond knew this. Before he ever dreamt of an island, he began construction on an amphitheater. But he abandoned it in favor of something far grander. And so the facility sits unused, unfinished, when it could be completed and ready to receive visitors in less than a month.
By 1989, International Genetic Technologies had succeeded in their design to genetically recreate the dinosaurs. It was an unprecedented accomplishment, the pinnacle of 20th century science, a work to rank with the achievements of Galileo or Einstein. But it was not all so easy or so simple as it appeared. One seldom hears the true history of such events. What happened at the place where the world changed, how it began, what were the reasons, what was the cost.
Why was Jurassic Park San Diego decommissioned? With only a month scheduled for construction to finalize and the park to open, it doesn't make sense for Hammond to just abandon the project. Unfortunately, there isn't much information as to why, so we've come to fill in the gaps. This is a strictly Head Canon research paper written to fit within the Jurassic Park cinematic universe, and is not meant to be taken as any sort of official canon. A relatively small property, nowhere near the grand size of Isla Nublar, with minimal paddocks, only a few species would be required to be cloned before the park could be considered complete. No less than 6 species, maybe 13 max. Prime waterfront real estate. If Hammond could afford another island, he could afford beachfront property. Only a month left until everything was finalized and the park could be open to the public. So why? Why would Hammond postpone San Diego and spend an additional 8 years to build another park on another island, when he could have stayed with San Diego and made millions with what he had and expanded on that? What if something happened at San Diego that forced Hammond to reconsider his plans for Jurassic Park? An event that would have put on full display the dangers of their work and put InGen's future at risk. To tell this story, we have to go back to 1975.
When I was little, I dreamed of a time when the entire world was covered by an ancient forest. Great hunters stalked in the cool darkness, among silent, huge columnar trees, oaks and sequoias.
In 1975, John Hammond, Benjamin Lockwood, and Norman Atherton began working on the foundations of International Genetic Technologies, with their base of operations in Palo Alto, California. They hired one Dr. Laura Sorkin to begin research into InGen's primary mission, bringing back the animals that time had left behind, the dinosaurs. Inspired by John Hammond's idea of using the blood collected from fossilized amber with ancient mosquitoes, as well as many other blood-sucking insects and invertebrates, Sorkin began her research in genetic replication in the basement of Lockwood Manor. And by 1984, with direct help from Norman Atherton, she had successfully cloned an elephant which she raised to adulthood, but kept contained to the basement lab of Lockwood Manor, using growth hormones to keep the specimen small and manageable. Content with Sorkin's success, InGen began construction on Jurassic Park San Diego, scouting out a small, empty island in Mission Bay. Hammond personally ordered Sorkin to begin her work on cloning the dinosaurs, and gave her dozens of shipments of amber samples specifically confined to the Hell Creek and Lance formations, in hopes that one of them would be the infamous Tyrannosaurus Rex. Sorkin worked desperately to successfully replicate the DNA she was able to separate from the amber, but none of the samples were complete enough to do so. Like all organic material, DNA decays over time, leaving massive gaps in the genetic sequence, and the older age renders the strands useless. But Sorkin was undeterred, and continued hard at work, but was never able to successfully replicate a strand of aDNA. Until one day...
If the DNA needed to be completed to successfully replicate, then we need a full strand of DNA. But since we can't find one, we will have to make it.
Sorkin figured, if they could close the code, sew the ends of the gene sequence gaps together, would the DNA render as complete? Would the genetic code begin to replicate? After years of study, after failing countless times, could the dinosaurs walk the Earth once more? The process was finalized, the gaps were sealed, the DNA was completed, and Sorkin began her process of replicating it.
And then it opened up. The code read true. The barrier of time for an instant opened. Nedry and I stared into the monitor. Straight back through 65,000 centuries.
Although initial tests proved successful at first, none of the extracted strands of DNA were long enough to code for anything other than a few previously unheard of viruses. The failure of Sorkin's method was put on full display, and Hammond began looking into potential replacements, hoping for someone with a new method to successfully create what Hammond yearned for so long for. Eventually, his eye was caught by a young but brilliant Asian American scientist named Henry Wu, a star pupil of Norman Atherton at MIT. Lockwood, however, remained hopeful with Sorkin and continued to protect her place at InGen, much to Hammond's dismay.
Henry Wu was an only child from Ohio, a prodigy. He gained early attention for his undergraduate thesis at MIT.
Sorkin continued working at InGen, desperate to finish the cloning process. At the time, she was completely clueless to her replacement and suspected that nothing was wrong. But with San Diego's completion inching its way closer, and with no attractions to speak of, the investors started losing hope with InGen and feared the failure of Jurassic Park. Hammond was furious that Sorkin had failed to find a strand of DNA long enough to complete the production of a viable embryo. But by late 1984, Sorkin had found a curious piece of amber in her ever-so-large collection. But the mosquito inside didn't look like any species she had seen before, and the rock itself looked different, newer. Hammond thought nothing of it at the time. It was just another failed science experiment to him. After the extraction, Sorkin was amazed with the amount of well-preserved DNA, and hoped it was enough to create a viable embryo. She closed the gaps and began the sequence. The code began to replicate, birthing cells which replicated as well. Inside the fragile confines of the emu egg, a body began to form, and it was as if time itself was unwinding. The elevator hissed as it slowly climbed down the empty shaft. Bright white lights filled the small enclosed space until it finally stopped. The wave of force washed over the young man as he caught his breath and awaited the doors to open. With a small, high-pitched ding, the room opened up to what appeared to be a medieval dungeon, with steel catwalks and freshly dusted pod-like rooms above the prison cells. He was greeted by an older woman with blonde hair. She appeared to be no younger than 40. Her glasses reflected the light of the elevator behind him, and with a smile she extended her arm in front of him and said,
You must be, Henry Wu? My name is Dr. Laura Sorkin. Welcome to InGen.
Dr. Henry Wu was brought to InGen by John Hammond shortly before Sorkin's announcement of the fully viable dinosaur embryo. Hammond had promised Wu a spot as the leading geneticist if their current one failed their mission, and Wu would be brought to finish her work. Upon arriving at Lockwood Estate, Henry Wu was introduced to InGen's founders, including Norman Atherton and Benjamin Lockwood, along with his daughter Charlotte. They huddled together in front of a large 3-foot incubator with a heat lamp shining down 9 identical emu eggs with fully viable and ready-to-hatch baby dinosaurs. But what species they would be is anyone's guess. Hammond hoped for Tyrannosaurus, but Sorkin remained optimistic. Wu held one of the eggs in his hands as it began to hatch. The shell around the baby withered away in his palms, and out came the key to a new era. A new era of the dinosaurs.
At first, we couldn't tell what they were. 3 claws, a sickle on its toe. Dromaeosaur? No, there aren't any species of Dromaeosauridae in the Hells Creek Formation. Not that we know of anyways. Serrated teeth? Truodonte? T. formosus? Pibraki? It's hard to tell since we don't have any record of its skeleton other than the teeth. Makes me wonder if both of them really existed. Or if they were always the same species. There have been cases where entire species of dinosaurs were reassigned because of their teeth. It's possible we have discovered a similar case with this. It's amazing to think what discoveries we will make with the technology we have. Whole new species, new discoveries, new behaviors, the truth about dinosaurs. For now, we will have to continue our work. And it's time to show our Troodon to the investors.
The birth of the first living dinosaur in the 20th century was a historic moment for all who were involved, both to the people who witnessed it and the investors who paid for it. With the precedent established, Jurassic Park San Diego would go on to be a worldwide known success. But unfortunately, during the presentation to the investors, the dinosaur handlers released the juvenile because they thought its smaller size posed no threat to anyone. They weren't prepared for the horrors that would unleash shortly after. Little did anyone present at the time know, the Troodon secretes an unusual toxin from its fangs whose effect mirrors a species of parasitic wasp known as tarantula hawks, specifically Hemipepsis ustulata. The venom causes the victim to suffer through a variety of symptoms, including a high fever, irritation, hallucinations, paranoia, aggression, seizures, paralysis, coma, and finally, brain death. Norman Atherton, the man who was bitten, went into an aggressive rage as a result of their paranoia and attacked one of the rangers on staff at the time. In self-defense, the ranger fired his gun at the paranoid CEO, but luckily he only had a tranquilizer dart in the barrel. The tranquilizer put the victim under and incidentally cured them of their infection, but the high dosage of the tranquilizer caused Atherton to suffer a heart attack. As a result, the investors pulled out of their investment with InGen, claiming that the Troodon was too dangerous to put on display in Jurassic Park. After the incident, Hammond and Lockwood discussed the plans for moving forward. The investor incident caused them to reconsider their plans for Jurassic Park in San Diego, and they realized that in the event of a dinosaur outbreak, that the surrounding area of San Diego would be under threat. The order was given to abandon the site, and Lockwood began looking into alternative investor opportunities. They contemplating moving the park to one of the other islands in the Las Cinco Muertes, but found the tropical island of Isla Nublar perfect for Hammond's vision. Sorkin was removed as chief geneticist, but Lockwood insisted on keeping her at InGen, claiming that if she were to spread her secrets to Biosyn or Manticore, that Jurassic Park would fail. She was given her own private laboratory in the northwestern point of Isla Nublar, but would focus her research into the behaviors of dinosaurs instead of continuing to clone them. Wu went on to replace Sorkin as the chief geneticist after proposing to fill in the gaps in the gene sequence with the DNA of modern-day animals, specifically Dendrobates laocomalus, the yellow-banded poison dart frog. And using this method, he cloned the first official genetically modified dinosaur in 1986, Triceratops horridus. In response to the Troodon's venom and parasitic breeding behavior, Hammond ordered the Troodon to be euthanized and have all physical records of its existence to be destroyed. But Sorkin managed to smuggle a small handful to one of the empty holding pens used to condition the dinosaurs to their new environment on Isla Nublar, which ensured their continued survival. With San Diego decommissioned, the investors backing out, and the loss of their business partner, Hammond and Lockwood were forced to restart, and it was as if the last 10 years were all for nothing. But things were looking up with Dr. Henry Wu. After cloning the Triceratops in 1986, he graduated MIT early with help from InGen and the Atherton estate to spend more time on Isla Sorna. After resecuring their investment, InGen broke a deal with the Costa Rican government and put a 99-year lease on the island of Isla Nublar. In 1987, InGen began the construction of a state-of-the-art attraction, Jurassic Park, and this time, they spared no expense.
On that last day, I stood apart from the rest of them. The helicopters were setting down. Before me the jungle spread out, and I saw that a savage, primal age had begun again. Creation is an act of sheer will, and next time it'll be flawless.
Hey Ember Miners, thanks for watching today's video. Be sure to click the subscribe button on your way out and click the bell icon to be notified of our videos when we upload them. Consider leaving a like on this video so we know that you enjoyed it. Leave a comment about content that you would like to see come to this channel. And be sure to check the description for links to our Discord if you would like to talk to the team more directly. Check out our Patreon if you would like to help fund the team and its upcoming projects. Remember, this is a fan group reviewing the depths of our favorite franchise, and that we are in no way affiliated with the groups and companies that own them. Be sure to support Universal Studios and Amblin Entertainment. This has been an Amber Mine production. Thank you for mining with us.